Welcome to, or back to, Forgotten Hollywood, the channel where I take you back in time to show you the movies, shows, and actors that have faded over the years. As I covered in part 1 of my action hero series, the cops of the 1970s are a natural progression from the cowboys of the 1930s. Dirty Harry is essentially a grittier version of the frontier lawman of the TV westerns, though it helps to make that connection when another of Clint Eastwood's most iconic roles is a literal cowboy. However, while the unconventional cop was the norm for the era, not all would classify as gritty. The police genre has been around for a long time, with uniforms appearing in some of the earliest silent films. But the unconventional cop was born out of the unconventional time of the 1960s. One such example comes from the 1968 comedy Support Your Local Sheriff. Yes, this goes back to the westerns, but Sheriff Jason McCullough, played by James Garner, was not the standard western hero. He was kinda selfish, avoided fights when he could, and he was more than a little sarcastic. Yes, he would only kill when needed, but that was about the only trait that carried over. The one thing he did have was stubbornness. He took the job as sheriff, and he was going to stay put, no matter how many men the Danby family sent to run him out of town. With few allies and facing greater numbers, Jason uses ingenuity as much as his gun to protect his town and bring a killer to justice in the funniest way possible. Just a few years after Jason cleaned up his town, Dirty Harry took to the streets of San Francisco, and another style of hero was born. Harry was rough and rude, sometimes to the point of being vulgar, but always got the job done. His films were far from the comedies of James Garner. There was a realism, a sense of life and death struggle that happens every day in the city. The films also addressed the absurdity of politicians and bureaucrats dictating how these life and death situations must be managed, usually with patience and understanding. Never mind that you will be dead in less than a minute if you don't act immediately. This is something Harry understands, and it's the sort of commentary that expanded the role of the unconventional cop for decades. One of the successors of Dirty Harry is The Stone Killer, starring Charles Bronson. This 1973 film came out in the wake of Dirty Harry's success and was one of many that followed the conventions of the unconventional cop. Bronson played Detective Lou Torrey, a cop who refused to play the nice guy when the suspect had a gun and showed willingness to use it. This did not endear him to the powers that be, and he temporarily lost his badge. Still, he did not back down and tackled a case involving the mafia and a small army of hired guns. The scenes of police work alternate with scenes of drive-by shootings that give the film its high body count. In television, the 1970s cops were far more tame than their big screen counterparts. But this wasn't to say that they were the standard cops either. For example, the title character in Columbo, played by Peter Falk, was Dirty Harry's opposite in almost every way. He was a polite family man who always said "pardon me" and apologized for interrupting someone. Yet his style was still unique in the sense that he rarely gave away who he liked for the murder, what he suspected, and covered his police work with apparent awkward clumsiness. In a similar way, Dennis Weaver's Sam McCloud from the show McCloud also takes a laid-back approach to crime fighting, when no one is shooting at him or in life-threatening danger. These men highlight one trait about cop movies. The unorthodox cop is either loved and respected by the department, like in Columbo, or tolerated to disliked, which is the case for McCloud. Sure, he has a few allies on the force that are willing to help him out, but all the higher-ups want to do is ship him back to Arizona. In the case of Harry and Lou, I think their superiors would also like to ship them to Arizona, or maybe Abu Dhabi. The 1980s saw an explosion of cop movies and television shows, from buddy comedies like Tango and Cash to dramas like T.J. Hooker. The unconventional cop was a favorite topic in series like The Police Academy and Lethal Weapon movies. However, there are two cops from the big screen that capture the look and feel of the 80s action movie: John McClane and Alex Murphy. John McClane, played by Bruce Willis, is the main character of Die Hard, which I maintain is a Christmas movie. Comment below if you have a good reason why it's not. Now, as we never see John at his home precinct in either of the first two movies, we can only get a feel for what kind of cop he is by his interactions with the bad guys and the local department. For example, when one bad guy is confident John won't hurt him because he is a policeman and tells him there are rules for policemen, John replies with, "So my captain keeps telling me." This makes it fitting that the villainous Hans Gruber, brilliantly played by Alan Rickman, keeps calling him a cowboy, as he has all the traits of Dirty Harry with 5 times the sarcasm. Alex Murphy, also known as RoboCop, doesn't engage in the same sort of banter as John McClane. He is more by the book than other unconventional cops, but that's sort of what makes him unconventional. His city is more of a post-apocalyptic world where people are more cynical and it's every man for himself. Enter Alex Murphy, an honest, hard-working cyborg who wants nothing more than to uphold the law and protect the innocent. Yes, he did follow John's example of knocking a bad guy out of a massively tall building, but he is a kinder and gentler cop, in most ways. If he catches you breaking the law, he can and will break you. Never mess with a cop that can crush a car with his hands. Alex Murphy serves as a commentary on the state of the world at the time the film was made, as many films did in the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s, particularly in the science fiction genre. Political corruption was highlighted in Judge Dredd, the desensitization of society in The Running Man, and political correctness in Demolition Man. Outside of cop films, the theme of political commentary continues into other action movies, such as The Delta Force and Starship Troopers. This leads to the other branch of the unconventional cop, the super soldier. Not to say that every soldier in these sorts of movies is especially strong, fast, or from another planet, although that does happen in some of them. Like the unconventional cop, a super soldier in this sense could be an ordinary man with exceptional skills. For example, look at any member of the original A-Team. Colonel Hannibal Smith is a brilliant strategist. Lieutenant Templeton Peck is a smooth talker. Captain H.M. Murdoch can fly anything. And Sergeant B.A. Baracus? Well, he basically fits the traditional view of the super soldier. There are many examples of this brand of super soldier on both small and big screen. Among the most well-known is the 1987 film The Predator. Action movie icon Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Dutch, a major that leads an elite team into the jungle on a recovery mission. But what they find is the perfect hunter, and they are the prey. Dutch must use his skills, cunning, and strength just to stay alive. Similar to Dutch is another icon of 80s action movies, John Rambo. Played by Sylvester Stallone, Dutch and Rambo, along with other examples of super soldiers, possess a mastery of several forms of combat and the ability to adapt to their environment. Of course, Rambo was not facing an alien force, just a prideful and hostile police force. As the movies progress, we see just how fortunate those deputies and National Guardsmen were that Rambo has self-control. Some of the most enjoyable action movies are the ones that don't take themselves seriously, and action icon Arnold is known for roles where he doesn't take himself seriously. In the action comedy Commando, he pokes fun at basically every tough guy role he had played to date as he hunts down the man who kidnapped his daughter. It has all the fast-paced action you'd expect from an 80s military movie, but manages to still keep a lighter feel to the story. It's just a fun movie where Arnold gets a rocket launcher. What's not to love? Following the lead of Commando, many of the 90s action movies featuring unconventional cops and super soldiers left behind the grittiness of the 70s and the over-the-top violence of the 80s, returning to the comedy of the 60s, without the censorship. This is where we see movies like Rush Hour and Bad Boys. On television, you had Due South, Stargate SG-1, and Walker, Texas Ranger. Each starred characters with exceptional skills, from the world's nicest Mountie that could track a white wolf through a snowstorm, to an Air Force colonel with a unique take on diplomacy. While each show had a good level of drama, they balanced it with a healthy dose of humor. A great example of the action comedy of this time is The Last Action Hero, another of Arnold's less serious roles. This time he plays Detective Jack Slater, the classic unconventional cop on the big screen. Literally. Jack Slater is the favorite action hero of the main character, a lonely kid named Danny, played by Austin O'Brien, who is obsessed with his favorite film series. When a magic movie ticket opens a portal between the real world and the latest Jack Slater movie, young Danny must use his vast cinematic knowledge to stay one step ahead of the bad guys and keep his hero from falling prey to the laws of physics. Ridiculous? Yes, but that's the point of a parody. It should be noted, however, that not all action movies of the 90s were parodies or even comedies. Some were just straight up action. Good guy versus bad guy, a lone man fighting to protect the innocent. One such hero is Harrison Ford in Air Force One. Ford plays President James Marshall, who is traveling overseas on a diplomatic mission when someone hijacks his plane. There is one thing these men didn't take into account. Marshall is not only a military vet, he received the Medal of Honor. This is not someone who's going to hide while there are people threatening his friends, family, and fellow Americans. It's kind of like Die Hard on a plane. The classic action hero, be it a cowboy, an unconventional lawman, or one of the military elite, is a trope that has endured for decades. They are unconventional, highly skilled, and never back down in the face of danger. From Dirty Harry to President Marshall, you can count on them to do whatever is necessary to ensure the innocent are safe for one more day. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on the evolution of the action hero? Can you see any similarities to the Western hero? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this sort of content. Also, click that bell to receive notifications. Let me know if there is another aspect of Hollywood's past you would like to learn about, and I will catch up with you next time.